How to have fun, anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
The Motor Dream podcast is recorded on Wallamedigal land of the Eora Nation. It always was and always will be the lands of the First Nations of Australia.
This is the Motor Dream Podcast.
Well, hello there. It has been quite a while, but we are back in your ear holes for the second season of the Motor Dream Podcast. I'm Connor McNally, and it is great to have you on board once again for the podcast where we can dream just a little about what our dream garage would be if money was no issue whatsoever. A lot has happened in the motoring and motorsport world since our last episode in July 2024, and some of our Season 1 guests have been making headlines. Maddie Patterson, our Episode 2 guest, she realised her dream of running an all-female race team called the Sekhmet Motorcycle Racing Team, where they competed in the FIM Women's Road Racing World Championship. Guy Andrews, our Episode 9 guest, he is now the chief instructor at the Norwell Motorplex, balancing his time attack racing with his surf life saving coaching up in Queensland. Courtney Prince, who was our guest on Episode 10, along with Carly Baccini, won her class in the Australian Production Car Series, and the pair are aiming for back-to-back class wins at the Bathurst 6 Hour later this year. Our final guest from Season 1, Ant-Man, he continues to design and paint helmets for all the top motorsport athletes, not just here in Australia, but also in the United States, where Shane Van Gisbergen has been carving it up in NASCAR land. And of course, Todd Hazelwood, our Episode 13 guest, he has not only won the Trico Trans Am National Series, but he has also won Australia's Great Race, the Repco Bathurst 1000 with Brodie Kostecki, and both Brodie and Todd will be returning to the mountain this year with Dick Johnson Racing and Shell V-Power to defend the Bathurst crown. It seems we've been talking to the right people, and Season 2 promises to be just as exciting with a fantastic lineup of guests ready to share their dream garage visions. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
This is the Motor Dream Podcast.
Before we begin our first episode of Season 2, here's a quick reminder of what this show is all about. I tell my guests that one day they wake up to discover that they have received a text telling them that they need to check their bank balance. They then open up the bank app and suddenly discover that they're instant billionaires. As soon as they discover their newfound fortune, they get an email from this mystery benefactor that tells them that they can spend anything that they like and can buy any car, bike or machine that they want. There is a catch though. They are only allowed 3 cars, bikes or machines in their dream garage. It sounds easy, doesn't it? But trust me, it is not. As my guests from the first season discovered, and I'm pretty sure that my guests throughout this second season will feel just the same as well. Speaking of which, my first guest in the second season has had a passion for speed since she was 16, both on land and on water. Bridget Bell is a prominent motoring media personality in Western Australia. You'll often find her at the iconic Perth Motorplex, where she roams the paddock at drag meetings and burnout shows, chatting with fans and the personalities who make the events so exciting. This role was a natural progression for her, as she was a promotional model at the Motorplex during the early 2010s. Before her love for all things automotive, Bridget discovered her passion for sailing at the age of 16, and she has since competed at a state level in the Women's Keelboat Championships, amongst other achievements. While she still enjoys her sailing, her true home is in the automotive world. As a presenter and commentator, Bridget is usually seen and heard at the Motorplex and is also seen at other high-profile events like Motorex, which is held in Melbourne. But her involvement goes beyond the media. In her early 30s, Bridget completed a 4-year apprenticeship with BMW Auto Classic in Burswood, Perth, earning distinct honours as WA TAFE's Apprentice of the Year in both 2018 and 2019. She didn't just stop at light vehicle mechanics, she's also earned her heavy vehicle qualifications and is now highly sought after in this field. Adding to her impressive resume, Bridget is the driving force behind Girls Talk, part of the Australian Women's Motoring Network. This volunteer organisation provides peer-to-peer mentoring, training, education and networking for women in the automotive trades as well as motorsport. This interview was recorded last September as she was preparing for a busy summer season of racing at the Perth Motorplex. We also had a few technical issues during the recording of this podcast, so please bear with me with some minor audio lag due to the internet not behaving itself when we recorded this chat. I have done my best to minimise some of the lag, but I promise you it is a conversation you do not want to miss because not only Bridget is incredibly talented, but she is also a very good friend. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy my chat with the first guest of Season 2, the remarkable Bridget Bell. Bridget Bell, it's great to have you on the Motor Dream podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation. I know we've been trying to line this up for a while, but between the pair of us, we're both pretty useless.
I wouldn't say useless, but we're pretty useful in our diverse fields of the media industry and in cars as well. It's great to have you on. And you're someone that has a diverse range of talents. You've been a mechanic, you've been a model, you've been a presenter, and now you're a lecturer. There's so much I want to unpack. Like, your life is busy and it's all evolving around cars and mechanics. Where did that love all come from?
Oh, you had to start with a hard question. Look, I really like using my hands. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I struggled in corporate environments. I tried being administrator. I tried doing bookwork. I tried all these sorts of things in my 20s and nothing really stuck. But then I took a deviation, a bit of a road down towards the automotive industry in my early 30s, and I loved it. And here we are.
Here you are. But you, as I said, you've been a model, you've been a presenter, and as I said, as a mechanic. But you started out in the drag racing and speedway world of the Perth Motorplex. That's where you got your first taste of everything motoring. And the Perth Motorplex, for those that are from Western Australia, is like the mecca of motorsport when it comes to drag racing and speedway. It was created in 2000 to replace the much loved and missed Claremont Speedway, and it is one of the most popular hubs of motorsport in the summer season. And you've been smack bang in the middle of it for a very long time.
Yeah, you have to give credit to Gary Milosevic. He had a dream. He made that reality. He really poured his heart and soul into creating that venue, like you say, replacing Claremont and the now defunct Ravenswood Raceway. And you really have to give the man the credit that he's due for having the foresight to create something that was large enough to grow with the sports. So now, of course, we've got our half-K clay.
It's a big clay oval, let's face it.
Yeah. I don't get over to the speedway side much anymore, but the speedway side, we've got a quarter-mile drag strip, and then we host other events there as well. I say we, but I'm just a ring-in with the Auto and the rally events and all these sorts of tarmac events that also hire the venue as well as car meets. There's something on every weekend.
Do you have memories of going to either Ravenswood or going to Claremont before the Motorplex, or was the Motorplex that your first introduction?
No, my first introduction to motorsport was Mullala Raceway. So my mum worked security. So as a 4-year-old, I would get tagged along to meet amazing people like Fangio and, that caliber of racer that were in town in the early 80s. So for me, my uncles are mechanics, mechanical engineers. Like, I've always been surrounded by it. My grandfather was a tool maker. So for me, growing up, it was in the shed around noisy, smelly things.
And noisy, smelly things that eventually became a part of your life into your adulthood. I must tell a story. The first time I saw you, and I'm going embarrass you a little bit here. You know where I'm going. I was working on the Checkered Flag show which was on Fox Sports back in probably about 2011, 2012. My first TV editing producing role that I did. And you were doing promotional work. You were a promo girl for Perth Motorplex. And that was the first time I saw you. I didn't know who you were, but I was curious to know who you were. And yeah, that's the first time I first saw your face and your figure. But you were promoting the Motorplex. You were one of the faces of the Motorplex at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was my first gig at the Motorplex. I was working with a drag racing team as their promotion person. Kissing babies and shaking hands in the pits, talking about the team, holding a flag in front of the cameras next to the track as the car would launch. So it was all about just bringing that next level of presentation and presentability to the race team. From there, I got scouted as being half useful. So during motivation, one year I worked as a promotion person and I stole a microphone and I refused to give it back for a day. And basically just had a great time stopping drivers, interviewing them about their cars, just having like really natural off-the-cuff interviews with them. And then when I went to sheepishly return the microphone to who I now know as Matt Nolte, he offered me a job based on just, how the crowd reacted with me and how we had just an amazing time. I think that was Motivation 25.
Oh, wow. That's a very long time ago.
Yeah, we're up to 34. So yeah, it was a very long time ago, and I've always loved motivation. That was my first motivation, and I haven't missed one since. I worked one with a broken back.
Oh.
I love that event. It's got something for everyone if you're into just show cars that have had hundreds of thousands of dollars and effort poured into them, or if you like the driving events, or my favorite part is Sunday morning where we have the elite pavilion come out and they do like the go to woes and the slalom events and the 8th mile drag racing to show their cars can perform. That's like my favorite time of the whole year.
Now, we should mention Matt Nolte is nowadays very much ensconced in the broadcasting side of things with Supercars and also TCR Australia. But Nolte, we know, we love him to bits. Like, he's just one of those people that just loves his sport. He loves his drag racing. He loves his speedway as well. He's very passionate about it. But he must have seen something in you to give you the opportunity. I mean, and he's a very decent bloke. We know that for a fact.
I mean, I learned my craft on the microphone as a newbie under the guidance of Matt and Chad Nailon and Dean Neal and Benny Bishop, and watching those masters of commentary do their thing to entertain the crowd every weekend. I was so blessed to see the caliber. And it's something that, I really want to pass on to the next generation of, started recruiting and trying to bring in new talent to mentor them the way that I had that opportunity of mentoring. And, that's a really big passion project for me, which I hope to continue next season as well.
How long have you been at the Motorplex for?
So 2011 was my first gig down at the Motorplex.
Wow.
So I had 3 years off while I did my automotive apprenticeship because it was too much work. Like, I couldn't do both justice at the same time. I'm hyper aware that as a commentator speaking on behalf of the racers, I'm in a really privileged position. And I think that you need to approach it with the seriousness that entails. So, yeah, I've always tried to maintain that in my commentary, is, not being too critical or too judgy and just telling the story the way it's playing out. But
Right.
yeah, Matt Nolte, stat. He's the next level. He's so prepared. I actually can't praise that man high enough for his commitment, work ethic, and just the work he puts in is ridiculous.
And Chad, you could say the same as well. Chad and Dean, of course, who these days does a lot of stuff behind the scenes with Channel 7 with their AFL coverage, and he still does some stuff with supercars and I think also with TCR in recent years. Those guys, like, they've really transgressed all their talent that they've learned and they've honed at the Motorplex into what they're doing now. And they do a fantastic job, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure of obviously working with Dean and Chad. Chad was scouted very, very early on in his career from his work at the Perth Motorplex with the drag racing TV that we had back in the day, and he just like leveled up so quickly. So I didn't get a lot of overlap in my career with Chad, but Dean obviously was the drag racing manager for quite a while, and a lot of the feedback that he had for me while he was in that position was like so well rounded. So it was really beneficial for me. And I think it was the first time receiving feedback from Dean was like getting clipped around the ear by like a heavyweight boxer. It was really telling. And from his advice, I went and did some courses at Murdoch University on broadcasting and these sorts of things to just round out my performances. So, I think media is one of those things you can't mess around with it. You really need to realize that the stories you're telling and what you're saying are people's lives. So you need to give it the onus that it deserves, because, it's very easy to glaze over the hours of effort and the money and the struggles and the commitment and the sacrifice that racers make, like, every day to be good at their craft and to present a championship winning machine and to be competitive. But, it's very easy to glaze over those details and be like, oh, it's such a sunny day, it's lovely. But then you don't want to be too heavy either and be all like, oh, everything's doom and gloom and sacrifice. And so it's that middle ground between entertainment and telling the story.
And it is difficult, isn't it? It's a very difficult balance to find at the best of times, particularly when there's a serious moment that's happening. Have you found yourself in awkward situations where you've had to try and be as middle ground as much as possible, or is that all the time?
Every day. There's real serious moments on track. Like if there's an incident on track where somebody's boned it and tried to move the wall, or and then there's the other side of the spectrum with like these triumphant highs where you're just elated. But if the role of media is to not get swept up in the moment, I guess, but still convey what's happening. I think Benny Bish said it the best to me, and he was like, close your eyes. And I'm like, okay, I'm sitting in the commentary booth at the Perth Motorplex, and he says, close your eyes and imagine that you're blind. I'm like, okay. He's like, now describe everything so that the person who can't see it can understand what's going on in the moment. And that was really some of the best advice I had, was remove yourself from it and take that ego out of it and just tell the story the way it is with as much background and depth as you can.
That's a good analogy to say, because Benny himself is very talented in his own right and a great storyteller too.
So talented, ridiculous.
Not just a good talent, not just a good commentator. He's a very good singer too and a good musician. I know that for a fact. I'll try and get him on the podcast at one point, but he wants me to go into a car, do a road trip with him and do the interview with him in some kind of like a classic car or something. I will take him up at one point.
Sign up. That sounds amazing. Have you seen his trip of Europe that he's on at the moment?
I've seen some of the photos of his trip in Europe. It looks amazing. He and his wife are having an absolute ball. I know that for a fact. I'm sure he'll be back in time for Bathurst. I'm sure he'll be doing some of the big screen stuff for Bathurst. Do you want to do Bathurst at one point? Do you want to do something like a Bathurst event or something else?
I think like in my younger days, I probably had aspirations to go V8 supercars and Formula One and like, live the big dream. But I think I've aged out and I'm not a pundit. Like I'm not even a good driver. So I don't think I have anything to offer in that space. I'll just stick to my grassroots where I thrive, and I just love the people and the connection that I have with them, and creating those conversations and those opportunities to explore people's stories. I think the big V8 supercar dream is I'll leave that for the next generation. And if I can give somebody a level up so that they get there, then that's probably more my focus at this point.
That's pretty cool. You actually now do a little bit of teaching. I mentioned at the beginning of the conversations that you're now a lecturer with the mechanical side of things. But I guess if you're going to teach someone that's looking to get their start in the media, you can nurture them as well. So what benefits do you bring as a teacher, as a lecturer now, into the space that you're, embarking on, like doing things mechanically, but you can also do some of that stuff in the media side of things?
Yeah, so last season, the beginning of last season for drag racing, I put the shout out online to bring in specifically female talent, and I had two girls respond. So I kicked and I screamed and negotiated with the Perth Motorplex and got both of them a start. Piper has gone on to join the Navy, and that's her full-time commitment, and she's an amazing woman. She came from a trials motorcycle riding background. She was Australian junior champion. Amazing woman. So she's gone on to do other things, but certainly her time in media helped with her presentation and her confidence and all those sorts of things as a junior. So very young. I think she was 16. And then Tash is continuing on this season, so this will be her second season in the chair, and she's just going really focusing on her. And then I had Kelly Frost approach me last season, and so we take chairs. So I'm going to be alternating my responsibilities with them as well as like trying to do my job.
That's cool.
And then the question you asked was about what can I bring to lecturing. I don't know, man. I just hit stuff with a hammer and set it on fire. Like,
I'm actually curious because I'm just curious because you went from being a presenter and a commentator, which you still do, into mechanics, and you became a qualified mechanic, and you actually won quite a few awards
full
for
trade.
Yeah. So where did that was a big tangent for you to go from being a presenter and a model and doing all that stuff into the mechanical side of things? Was the mechanical experience something that you really wanted to know to help bolster your knowledge of all things mechanical, particularly when you do the media?
I blame Santino Rapisada.
Really?
Because if he hadn't let me hit and strip the supercharger seals with him and check deflection rate of valve springs and just mess around with him for a day, between that, J-Mac and I pulling down his Volkswagen at one point and putting in coilover shocks and just, just getting my hands dirty and getting more of a feel for it and just being exposed to it. And then the feedback was always, oh, you can do this. Like you actually know, like you have the mindset for it. And I think that's just having that tactile feel for things. So then I was at a point with the company I was at where I was just burned out, was never going to go anywhere. It's like I'd leveled out. And when I asked to actually go on the tools, they flat out rejected me and said, "Nah, girls don't do this." I was like, "Okay, that's fine. Bye."
Wow.
And it took a little bit of time, and then I went and did a pre-app, and I loved it. And then I got signed on for an apprenticeship, and I loved it and really lent into it. I did take the break, like I said, from commentary, and got back-to-back Apprentice of the Year for TAFE WA in 2018, 2019. Then COVID came along, and
so everyone in that tracks, didn't it?
yeah, look, I was still like considered what do we call them, essential worker. So I was still considered an essential worker, but my hours were cut in half. And the only industry in WA that was really kicking on unaffected was mining. So financially, it made sense to go over to heavy duty diesel. So that's what I did. And I didn't upgrade. So I got my heavy duty diesel cert and kind of lent into hydraulics by the end of my upgrade. And then I went and dabbled in cranes a little bit. And I didn't like that very much. I don't fit in most areas under a crane. I'm quite a large woman, like I'm, 5'7" and quite stocky now from swinging a hammer. So, like, well, no, I'll go back to hydraulics. And that's what I did. And I was working for Kyle Putland at Hydraulic Technical Solutions. And I absolutely loved it. And I had no interest in leaving. And then I saw an advert for the MTA asking for a lecturer or a trainer assessor.
The Motor Traders Association in Western Australia. So there's always a state association for motor traders, and we've got one here in New South Wales. You've got one in Western Australia. And
so their division, so it's the MTA WA training. So their training division was hiring on Seek. And I was like, I'm probably still a little bit early in my career to be pursuing this, but I'm quite good at talking to people. And I really, really love teaching apprentices. Like whenever there's an apprentice around, I'm like, come here, I'll learn you something, and then you can go and, I don't know, do whatever. But let me learn you a thing, put a little wrinkle in your brain. So I was like, I'll just throw my hat in the ring and see how it's received. And then they looked at what I'd been doing. And one of the big issues for people leaving the tools and going into a lecturing position is, even though you can be really great at your job on the tools, that doesn't necessarily translate immediately to standing in front of a cohort of up to 20 students and brazenly presenting all day.
Because there are some mechanics that are very good on the trade, but they can't put two sentences together. I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but that's sometimes just fact. They're not necessarily big talkers like you.
Like, I think most people would struggle to hold the attention of 20 people for X amount of days straight and be engaging and, have the background knowledge to tap into and, have that rapport and that that presentation skill. I think that's a skill set on its own that's separate to being an effective and productive mechanic. So, the two don't always overlap, and it does sometimes take time to develop those skills. And some people do have a lot of knowledge to share, but they get in front of a room of people and just go, and clam up. So,
whereas in your case, you don't have to worry about that because you've got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I'm quite used to making a fool of myself in front of them, and I'm cool with it. So, like I don't have any problem jumping up in front of a class of students and like acting out how something works and being a big with my hands and my movements to try and get them to understand, because inherently the kids that are finding their way into trades are good with their hands. They're not good with books. And like, you can be really, really literate, or you kind of get forced into trades, don't you? That's kind of like, oh, go to university or get an apprenticeship. So, we're not catering to book smart kids that are ready to write essays. We're dealing with kids that are really smart with their hands.
Mm. And now you have to translate that in a theory sense, like in a sense that you have to either put it into pen and paper or actually physically show them in a practical sense how to actually do it. And as you said, there's a lot of people that have the talents with their hands, but they have to translate that into practicality, and that's your job to actually show them how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you nailed it right then with your statement, because the course requires you to be competent both in theory and in practice. You can't just be strong in one or the other. So, you couldn't sit a classroom of kids down and just play PowerPoint after PowerPoint or video after video, or just talk at them and get them to write words, because that's not the entirety of the course. Like, you need the key fundamentals, you need that theoretical underpinning knowledge, but then the job doesn't happen on a computer. The job happens on people's cars.
Absolutely.
So you need to be able to do the thing safely and demonstrate that, you are competent on that task.
Do you feel kind of proud that your talents, being a mechanic and being a presenter, and bringing these two worlds together into that one job? You kind of feel lucky that it's like your dream job in a sense.
Yeah, it's that perfect intersectionality of my skill set. I likened it to, your murder scene investigations on like CSI, where you have your pin-up board and it's got all the red threads joining all the pin points. I feel like my whole career is just, it looks like one of those where it makes no sense until you join all the little dots together, and then you end up where I am now. But, I'm not finished with my career yet. So
absolutely not. You're very lucky, because you've had a couple of good teachers. You've had Matt Nolte, which you mentioned before, Chad Nalon, of course, Dean Neal. I'm going to try and get Chad and Dean on the podcast at one point, if they say yes. But you also mentioned two other people that you mentioned and very well, one of which you live, I don't think he lives far from you, a local. So you mentioned Santino Raposata. Santino, very much a part of the drag racing fraternity, the Raposata family, one of the biggest names in Australian drag racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge name. So many, amazing achievements under that umbrella from that family. And, it was a change for me. It was like a shift. It was like just, a real sliding doors moment of, if I hadn't had that experience, then I wouldn't have taken the path that I have taken. So it was, I said this to him recently. I'm like, it's all your fault. It's your fault that I'm doing this. And we laughed. It was great.
I love the fact that the Raposatas are very much a family-orientated affair. It's stayed within the family for so many years. I mean, drivers will come and go, but you've got obviously Louis, the patriarch of the family, and of course they race for is it Louis that passed away? It was Santo. Yeah, so Santo's the patriarch. I'm sorry, Louis is who they race for in memory, and we lost him more than 30 years ago, sadly. But you got Santo Jr. and of course Santino. It's just a very close knit family who just love drag racing, and they race at the upper echelons of professional drag racing, not just here in Australia, but they go to America and they try and do their best against some really talented teams and talented names. So they're not just punching above their weight, but they do a damn good job of it as well.
Our top fuel competitors in Australia, the level that they are competing at is phenomenal. You look at the cost of like a pass, and upwards of $7,000 for the rotating assembly, what needs to be replaced on every pass. You're looking at so many gallons of fuel. It's just this massive machine. It's not just the I'm not referring to just the car itself, but the every part of it, every member of the crew is muscle memory on race day. So they do so much work behind the scenes to be able to just reach, grab tool, apply, twisting, torque, whatever, change bolt, move something. Like, to have that level of professionalism in the pits where there's no talking and everything's calm and everything's moving at a monumentally fast pace. Like, if you liken this to a general service on your car, it'll be in and out in 5 minutes. Like, you're 3 minutes, 5 minutes, done, just because of so many moving parts going on at the same time. It's incredible to watch. And that was really inspiring for me, looking from the outside as somebody who wanted to play with cool stuff.
Before we move on, I want to touch on drag race and Top Fuel, for example. I've seen Top Fuels in the past. I've worked in the media in an OB van. I've also been on camera on the start line of a Top Fuel event, and I mean, they shake the ground quite literally. I mean, it is scary, but it is quite an overwhelming experience. But if you ever go to a drag race meeting, particularly either at the Motorplex or at Sydney or wherever it might be, even at the Bend, if you go into the pits, you'll know what Bridget, if you see what they do in between runs, you'll understand what Bridget's talking about, because as soon as they get back to the pits, they strip down and rebuild everything every run. They don't leave it there like a normal race car would for any other category. It's a very serious business every run they do.
And I mean, it's a little bit different from, say, if you are used to going to a supercar paddock where, if every component is whole and it's stamped, so that, if they have a transmission failure, they swap the whole part out, swap the new one in. And they do that to a degree with blocks, and they'll have like blocks sitting there and clutch packs ready to go. But they're literally stripping it down and checking everything to make sure all of the clearances are okay. Like, all of the spring tensions are okay. Like, it is absolutely phenomenal. Every seal is where it needs to be. Swapping everything out after every pass, because they're just, so volatile. This explosive. There's not fuel, it's an explosive that they're harnessing to create this power. 1,100 horsepower in a single pass. It's incredible. But it absolutely blows my mind that they make it look so effortless and easy and synchronized.
Does it still blow your mind every time they do a run? Not just necessarily when you see them in the pits and they're stripping down and checking everything, but when they actually go down the 1,600 meters.
You can just see the level of professionalism. Like, everybody's got their job, whether it's...
Sorry, I lie. I say 1,600. I mean 1,600 feet, which is like 400 meters. So you know what I mean? A quarter mile.
Yeah, the quarter mile. I glazed straight over that. I knew exactly what you meant.
Thank you.
If it's your guy going out to check the track temperature and traction, if and running back to the pits, it's the team lining up before the pass. It's the guys that are cleaning the tires, your reverse gear to make sure that that they're positioned. There's so much science goes into it, depending on like where the car is going to sit in the rut or out of it, because they may want a little less traction. So they kind of calculate where to put the tires on the rubber that's been laid before, or whether they're slightly offsetting it. It's just the amount of like maths and the moving parts and the pieces and the like barometric pressures for the clutch setup. And you're like, sorry, what? There's so much.
There's a lot of science, isn't there? I don't think many people realize. I mean, everyone, if you follow supercars, everyone knows, there's a lot of mechanics that can set up a car, suspension, toe in, toe out. But drag racing is a completely different science, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's all relative, isn't it? So, it's all based on the same kind of engineerings. We're talking in terms of just pressure fluctuations, and we're just manipulating things. Like every engine's just a big air pump. Um, it's moving from low pressure to high pressure, and we're just making stuff happen. We're taking reciprocal motion and turning it into rotational force, and then turning the world with it. So we can blow it up and make it huge, or we can break it down into the sum of its parts and make it really consumable for like everyday people. So for most of us, it's just engine goes vroom and car goes fast.
Exactly. The other person I want to mention, you spoke about just before, J-Mac. Now, J-Mac to most people would think, oh, who's this J-Mac? I'm referring to a commentator and friend of ours in Jarrett McLean, who's a Western Australian like you, has made himself a bit of a name in the drifting and drag racing circles, as well as circuit racing. He's now one of the series commentators for the High Tech Oil Super Series, which travels around Australia and is broadcast on SBS and also on Fox Sports. And you've helped him out in his racing exploits from time to time, but you've also worked together as commentators. So, he's been a big supporter of yours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. J Mac and I got to start like nearly the same time. He was at uni studying journalism and had to do, I don't know, some kind of university thing where they go and do the job they're doing, or that they're practicing for. And I was swanning around holding a flag and talking on a microphone. Pretty much the exact same story as what's happening now. He's very, very good and prepared and relevant and researched, and I'm still...
Oh, I wouldn't say that. You're very talented in your own right.
Yeah, the approach is different is the point I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same, where I just turn up and I try and use anecdote.
Don't I? So, I'm very, very lucky that I've got a big fan base of people who genuinely like what I do and like that I'm approachable and want to talk to me. It's a different style, and I'm actually really glad you brought this up, because there's so many different varieties of delivery, and what is right for one audience or for one member of the audience doesn't necessarily just take off with a different member of the audience. So having this scope for delivery is really important, and it's something that people like supercars do really well, because even though, if you watch the online discussions, they hate people, love people, or whatever, it doesn't really matter, because they're still connecting to a part of the audience to share the story of what's going on.
It's an interesting story it's an interesting anecdote that you say, because you can just turn up and just say, oh, he's car one or car two going around a corner and going around another corner. But you got to add an element of a story, or like if there's a battle going on, you need to give context of the backstory of the battle between these two drivers, or the backstory of how they got there, or what happened in qualifying. You've got to add
blue car, red car. The red car is overtaken by the green car. The green car is falling behind. The red car is surging forward. Like, it can be really boring, or you can make it really accessible to your audience. And it's so important to have different voices.
I need to ask a question before we move on, and I'll ask a couple more motoring questions before we move to the more serious stuff. If you had an opportunity to go back to the Bridget that started in the industry when she was a promo girl and holding a flag, and and what would you say to that Bridget Bell from, say, 15 years ago to what would you say to her of where she would end up?
Ignore the boys, invest in yourself, pay for the courses, buy the books, read the books, get to know the people. That would be my advice to Bridget in the early days. I think Bridget, when she was in her 20s, was wildly distracted by societal pressures to get married and have babies, and the career was second to that narrative. But the career is really good. So yeah, that would be my advice to Bridget early on, would be to believe in yourself and knuckle down and do the work.
Did it take a while? I must ask, did it take a while to get that belief in yourself when you started out doing all that promo work?
The promo work was fine. The promo work, so I did a lot of like commercial modeling at that point in time when I was like, young and fit and pretty. And the money was ridiculous. Like you get paid up to $80 an hour. And as a side hustle on a Sunday for 4 hours, that was good money. So, single young Bridget was studying and working full time and working as a cleaner, cleaning a trucking depot at 3 a.m. in the morning, and and then commentary on the side just to try and top things up. So like if I could pull a couple of extra bucks here and there to make ends meet, that was what I did. So young Bridget had a really good work ethic. I still have a good work ethic, but
you had to think about that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just like, maybe I'm being too harsh on like current Bridget, but I still have a really good work ethic. I just don't do as many things. I just kind of focus a bit harder on doing what I'm doing better. I think I was a lot more scattered back in the day and applying energy everywhere. But that's the beautiful thing about youth, is you have all this energy. It's an abundant source of energy to just do everything and play netball and be involved in the football club and being on the Youth Agricultural Society committees and, the rest of the stuff that I was cramming into.
So much I didn't know about you until now, Bridget. I'm learning all this stuff. You love netball. You're into the agricultural side of things. Like, what is there to not know about you?
I didn't start playing netball into my late 20s, and it's just something you did in a rural community. Is you just committed to doing stuff for the team, because they were always short players. And I was like, well, if I can fill a place every week, then it doesn't really matter that I'm rubbish at it. It like the team can play, the team can rock up on game day. So that's what you do. You just make this commitment to run around and chase a ball and fall over a lot. My real passion is sailing.
Yeah. Oh, we'll talk about sailing in a minute, because that's going to be, from what you've told me, going to be part of your dream garage. I won't go there yet. I want to hold off from that. Drag racing. Sport now is in a very good place after quite a number of years of instability and infighting. We had a split for a while.
A lot of drama. Luckily, that happened during my apprenticeship.
And it worked out well for you. So you could just step aside and let you do your thing. I'm going to go off and do my apprenticeship. But now
you guys sort that out. When I come back, just have this sorted and I'll be great. So, yeah, like a lot of the stuff that happened during that period, I was not paying attention to, just because I was focusing really, really hard on my studies and just learning how to be a good apprentice. And there's this massive learning curve over those 4 years where it changes so much about the person you are.
Yeah.
And just learn so much more about like discipline and integrity and all of these sorts of things. So it's a massive shift. But
are you happy that the sport is back in harmony again? We've got Nathan Prendergast running the national series now, the National Drag Racing Championship. The sport's in a very good place now.
Yeah. Look, I got a phone call from Nathan, which I missed because I don't answer my phone. I don't think I've had my ringtone on since 2009. So I rang him back, and I was like, have you got the right number? And he's like, no, I want you for TV. And I was like, there's no one else available. Like, are you sure, mate? And he's like, no, you'll be great. And I'm like, I've seen your work, and you know all the players, and you know what you're doing. So jump on board with this broadcast. And I was like, yeah, no worries. I'll be your girl. So that's where most people, if they recognise me, that's where they'll recognise me from, is the start line of Perth Motorplex for the NDRC. And Nathan is just so across the sport and broadcasting and presenting is something that's really palatable and consumable by just the everyday mud punter. Like, you don't have to be like, chewing statistics and following drag racing in America and the UK and Europe and be like a fanatic to be able to understand and enjoy the production of what's going on. And just the level of production is next level. It's amazing. It's so good for the sport.
It makes you proud, doesn't it, to be involved in the sport?
You know what? Like, pinch me. I'm so blessed to.
Well, I wish I could. I wish I could. I wish I could pinch you right now, but you're about 3,500 k's west at the moment. I can't reach you through the screen, unfortunately. But I know what I'm going to metaphorically pinch you, because it must make you proud.
Yeah, and like to see a live stream of every event where it doesn't matter if you're entered into like Super Street or Junior Dragster or whatever like category it is, whether it's your level 3 through to your competition classes, it doesn't matter. Everybody's got the same amount of like airtime during that live broadcast, and then to be able to have like consumable 1 hour condensed versions of that to look back on after the fact, it's so good for the sport.
And it's on a national broadcaster as well with Channel 7.
Yeah, we're taking I'm gonna like pretend I own this, taking it into like lounge rooms that potentially have never heard of drag racing or don't know where their local track is.
It's incredible that it's broadening that audience, and it must give the sport as a whole, it must give them a bit of a boost in the arm that it's been looking for a long time.
Yeah, and it's well deserved, because you look at the amount of work and effort and money that people commit to every facet of the racing. It's really, really good to have that just desserts for every racer out on race day. It's great.
This is the Motor Dream Podcast.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I know you love your cars, and I know you love to get hands-on when it comes to cars, and also everything mechanical. But I want to know a little bit more about what makes you, Bridget Bell, tick as a car enthusiast. So I'm going to ask you some simple questions.
I didn't know there was going to be a test. I haven't prepared.
Good, because I like that. Keeps you on your toes. All right, I'm going to start. The first car that you drove?
Drove or owned?
Both.
Drove would have been a Nissan Pulsar TI 1996. No, yeah, 96, I think the model was.
Okay.
It was it had like a button clutch. It was being taught by my mum how to drive, and she was all like accelerator, brake, clutch, and drive, and expected me to know what to do. So that quickly failed. And then I moved to my mum's column shift automatic VR ute. Because apparently I couldn't steer and do gears at the same time. I was useless. So I learned how to, steer a car in an auto, and then went back to learning how to, pull it all together in a manual. So that TI was also the first car I crashed. I gave it a little book in the hospital car park. It's a good place to have a crash, as it turns out.
How did you do that?
Well, I don't know what it was. I went with mum, and I was on my learners still. So we're talking like early days of driving.
Yes.
There's young 16-year-old Bridget, 16 so many months, probably like 10 months. So we gone to the doctors for, I don't know, routine 16-year-old things, and I'd parked too far back. So mum criticised that and said, "Oh, you pull in further into the bay because there's like a half a car length that you're hanging out." And I was like, okay then. So I hadn't got the bearings for how long the bonnet was at this point. So I tried to correct that the next time I pulled into the car park. So we'd gone for a referral to get blood tests or whatever. Miscalculated how far into the bay I needed to be.
Oh, no.
It was a new bumper, a new radiator.
Oh, that would have come out of your own pocket or your mum's pocket?
No, she was the responsible person. She was the one telling me what to do. So she grabbed the handbrake. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, leave it at that. Leave it at that. Blame the mum. That's what you do when you're 16. Blame the mum.
So, why not just pull it?
Exactly.
Worried about falling? Come on, man. No, so that was fine. So I think that was like 1 month into my driving escapades. Are we just going to go through crashes?
No. We don't have to necessarily do that. But how many crashes have you had? Just some.
Not very many. I reversed into a Volvo in my first car, which was a Suzuki Swift. And
I was going to ask you what was your first car that you owned. It was a Suzuki Swift. Okay, good,
Yeah.
Good choice of car.
It was 2 doors, manual, so definition, sports car. It was red, also sports car. It was the GA model, which was their sport variant. It was a 0.98 litre 3-cylinder. So, it sounded sporty. It struggled to do 110. I maxed out at 138 downhill with a tailwind. It was a great car. It was a really good first car. There was no way I was ever going to kill myself in that car because it was just, it didn't have anything to kill you with. It was the last car on the road.
Wow. Okay. So, but you were saying you had another accident in that car. What was it?
Yeah. So I got my P plates, and that week I went down to Bunbury, which
south of Perth.
It's got a different driving style to sleepy rural Waroona, where I was from. So I had pulled out into an intersection and then went, oh, no, I can't. I don't have enough. There's cars coming, and I've gone to reverse back, but I didn't look behind me at the shopping centre car park, and I reversed into a Volvo. So my back bumper fell off and the Volvo remained completely fine. So I got out of the car and I was very apologetic, and I just explained that, I'm really sorry. And the lady was livid. She cracked it. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with your car. Literally, my bonnet is on the ground. Oh, my bumper is on the ground, and you're in a Volvo. It's basically a moving house brick.
Lives up to its reputation, doesn't it?
Yeah, so the Volvo came off unscathed. I clipped my bumper back on, and everyone got on with their lives, and that was fine. Aside from that, really don't have any amazing driving stories. I've had a few bingles on motorcycles, but not anything that springs to mind as an exciting.
I don't know, because I'm gonna test your memory a little bit more. Do you remember the first road trip that you remember going on growing up?
I remember my most memorable.
Let's hear that. Your memorable road trip.
So I'd moved back to Adelaide, and the girlfriend that I was working in the pub with had never been to Western Australia. So her and my cousin from South Australia and I flew to Perth and jumped in. It might have been a Pulsar.
That Pulsar that you... Interesting. Okay.
I feel like it was. Anyway, a bit hazy on the details. And my best mate, Brad, got in the car and we drove to Albany and back. But part of the deal was we have these brown signs, tourist information signs on the side of the road, right? Every sign we had to stop the whole way from Perth to Albany. So like, I don't know, how far is that? Like 600 Ks? Something ridiculous. And every tourist thing, it was like anything, a lookout, a beehive, a big tree. It didn't matter. We had to get out and go and have a look at it and take some photos and get back in the car, and off we went. But it was primarily a driving trip. We ended up like the first night, I think we made it to Bridgetown, I think it was. And it was already dark. We pulled up at the local hotel motel. We got a dorm room with a bed, like 4 single bunks that we all bunked in on. And I don't think any of us actually brought like a hairbrush or anything meaningful, because you can get to like it's a bloody long drive to Albany and back. You can do it in a day, but we didn't actually anticipate that with all the stops it would take longer. So I think we paid like $20 a head for overnight accommodation, and we had a shower and a pub feed and all went to bed. But I ended up, because I had long hair, I ended up with the biggest rat's nest in the nape of my neck, just from like driving and turning my head on the headrest. So that was the most memorable thing about that, was sitting in the shower crying with conditioner, trying to get the rat's nest out of my hair after what ended up to be like a 4-day saga.
Oh no. Did you eventually untangle your hair and it was all fine?
Yeah, like dreadlocks don't suit me. I can't do it.
Excuse me, you had dreadlocks?
No, I tried. My hair's so like straight and boring that it just they just fall out. So it's just I've just never been able to actually do a hairstyle. Like a little fact about Bridget Bell, I've done all these sensational commercial modeling gigs. I never do my own hair and makeup because
Hang on, I need to see photos of you. I need to see photos of you with dreadlocks or whatever you've done to your own hair. I need to see it. Don't you shake your head at me, because I want to see it. In our private time, thank you very much. I don't think any of our listeners listen.
I'm just thinking, this is the time before phones. So we used to do like so many crazy things that everybody would sit around and laugh about, and you rock for an evening, but then you wouldn't capture those memories
unless you had a disposable camera or one of those cameras that 35mm cameras or whatever. No, I'm of that. Remember, I'm of your vintage as well, so we know.
Yeah, look, and I'm sure I've got some photo albums, places, but we're always living in the moment. So, and I'm really bad for it still now. People are like, "Oh, why don't you put this up on social media?" And I'm like, "Because I forget, because I'm enjoying it. So why would I?"
You're living in the moment
by taking out a camera, and I suppose it's just one of those things I probably need to improve on.
That's not a bad thing. If you're living in the moment, enjoy it. I think it's a good thing. All right. The kind of music you listen to in your car when you are driving. Are you a dance person, rock, trance?
So, little known fact, I suffer from vestibular migraines, which is a fancy term for a migraine without a headache. So in the car, I listen to the car. I drive a manual. I just listen to the note of the engine and the tyre noise and the windscreen wipers and the cars around me honking and carrying on because I chop them up on the road. If I do want to listen to some music, it's so mood dependent. Dance, death metal, pop, soaring ballads. I just like music that goes places and tells stories and changes tempo.
You just can't listen to it in the car, though.
It depends on the day. Yeah. My Spotify list is real random. I've got a playlist for work, which I obviously don't use anymore, but workshop tunes, which was curated to, I think it was about 80 hours of random, very, very random workshop music. So, like, there was Adele on there, and then there was like, Marilyn Manson.
That's a big extreme from one to another.
And then like everything in between. So, the only thing that got removed from that list was like stuff that people didn't gel with. Like if somebody was uncomfortable listening to a song in the workshop, I'd immediately just delete it from the playlist, because you shouldn't have to be subjected to music that you don't like at work.
I agree.
I'm the kind of weirdo that like got my boom and put it on top of my rack at work in the middle of winter and just put campfire noise on because it was so cold in the workshop. It gave us the illusion that it was warm because of the crackling and the crickets,
I like that. It just trains your brain to think that everything is warm still. I like it.
Yeah, we can feel the heat even though there's no actual heat. So we would have mariachi Tuesdays where we just listen to mariachi band covers of just pop songs. I've done a lot of crazy stuff in trade.
I believe it. You are crazy, but it's just, nothing surprises you anymore. Nothing surprises me, actually.
I was like, you were completely unsurprised when I was like mariachi band covers, and you were like, "Yep, that sounds about right for her."
Because as I said, nothing surprises me about you anymore. So I've been used to you for so long. Yeah, like go from being a promo model in swimwear to being a presenter to being a mechanic and getting your hands dirty and now being a lecturer. Yeah, nothing surprises me about you. You're a multi-talented human being. I'm very impressed by that.
When you said that, it really sounded like I've grown up.
Yeah, but you're still you've grown up, but you've also there's still an element of silliness about you. Like you haven't grown up in a way as well. Like
it's just gotten ticking over the ages. It's not really it's not affecting my mental status. I'm still a child.
Yeah, same here. Eating in cars, yes or no?
Yes, absolutely. I will absolutely mung down a cheeseburger while I'm driving. And I kind of, have you ever fed a horse? Where you're like,
I have. Yes.
Yeah, but that's me with a packet of like French fries, like holding the packet and then just like. Also, like, big fan of the coffee on the road trips.
Me too. Me too.
Absolutely. Road trip, foods, snacks. I get hangry, so 100% condone this behaviour. Not a fan of scraps being left in the cars. I've repaired far too many cars that have had wiring harnesses chewed by rats to have a filthy environment, but absolutely.
You might get some people saying, no, don't do that. Don't eat food in cars. You make sure you clean up or whatever. That's I'm guilty of it as charged. I cop a little bit from my wife, but I'll leave it at that.
Your car is an extension of your life. Yeah. It needs to be somewhere that you're comfortable in. It needs to be somewhere that you're relaxed in, but not too relaxed. It needs to have a certain level of familiarity. And, if you're like sitting with cruise control on and you're driving down a straight road for up 10 kilometres, I don't know, unless the police change their stance on it, I'm 100% like whatever you need to do to make that journey worthwhile for you.
Okay. Just a couple more questions.
Mm-hmm.
And one that I want an honest answer out.
Mm-hmm.
What's the one thing that you wish people would appreciate more in cars? Because you're a mechanic.
Tire pressures. Goes at the back of the room. Tire pressures.
That's a good answer. Why tire pressures? Because I can understand why you're saying it, but why tire pressures? Why is it
Yeah.
so important?
The single biggest influence you have as a driver for the day-to-day handling and serviceability of your motor car, tires wear suspension, suspension wears tires, everything just works in this balance. And the one thing you can do is make sure that you are checking your tire pressures. It saves you from like overpressure. Obviously, you're going to wear out the inside of your tires. Under pressure, you're going to wear out the outside of the tires. It's going to cost you money, and it's the simplest thing to do. Yeah, tire pressures.
Good answer.
Thank you. I hadn't prepared.
I know, and that's why I like it. That's why I wanted to keep you on your toes, which is really good. All right. Worst car you've owned?
I haven't had bad cars.
Okay. Well, what's the best car you've owned?
All of them. They've all been exceptional because I have always bought cars that I need to suit my lifestyle at that point in time. So, wanted something cheap and reliable. I had a Mitsubishi Magna. And, that thing, reckless ex-boyfriend crashed into a ditch and broke the CV joints out of and just completely annihilated, and decided it was a great idea to do an engine blow with no oil in the sump, and we ran out of fuel before that engine blew. So, had to go get more fuel to try and make it explode, and went through a whole tank of fuel with that engine. Just didn't want to give up. Great car. Absolutely. Like, not a great story, but great car.
I like that. So when you find cars that are indestructible, like Toyotas or whatever, they're the good cars.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm all about functionality. So I've always primarily had wagons or utes. So I've had a Rodeo, which was an Isuzu motor. I've had a Skyline wagon. My favorite car I've owned is like a 86 Skyline with the interior and the trip computer, the TI model. Yeah, that was really, really good. LSD differential, had the RB30 motor. Loved that car. Yeah, really responsive, great to drive, great handling, very dynamic, and like pound for pound for what was available in my price range at that point in time. Great car. What else have I had? I had an A4 wagon. Loved that. Diesel, 2-litre, manual. Most of my cars have been manuals. Worst car I've ever had. Kluger.
A Toyota Kluger.
Yeah, I had a Kluger Grande. There was nothing about that car I wanted. That was a car that was purchased by my ex-husband for me to be like my soccer mum car. That never eventuated, and it had like the beautiful walnut interior. Walnut, not real, was it? It's plastic. Like the leather interior, sunroof. It had all the bells and whistles. It was too big. It was too thirsty. It wasn't a Bridget car. Currently drive a Jimny, a new model Jimny.
They're all right.
Yeah, back seats folded down, mattress in the back from IKEA for the doggos. Yep, great car, little dog wagon, gets me around, zippy, easy to park, good features, very agricultural, like the inputs.
Yeah.
It's very much like driving a tractor, and I appreciate that. I like it. And manual again. Yeah, so all of my cars have either been like some kind of a wagon variant, or like even like my hatches have been 2 doors. I went through a series of like Falcons, EA, EB, EC, EF, FG.
The ED was what, the next model up. So,
there's skipped a couple, but like the sedans that I've owned, I've never owned a Commodore.
Wow. You've never owned a Commodore in your life?
I've certainly driven a lot of them, like family members and friends have owned Commodores and VLs and VKs and VSs and like throughout the years there's been Commodores around, but I've never been the owner of one.
Interesting.
Maybe I should change.
No, don't change it. Don't change it. No one wants to own a Commodore. No, I'm kidding. I'm a Ford person. I can say that with bias.
I think the only Holden I've owned is a Rodeo, which was basically just an Isuzu. So,
And I know that they've got the Isuzu motors are like indestructible.
yeah, that thing was like, that was gold. That car ended up on its roof twice. And I wasn't driving. It just happened that way. First time I was going to write PTO on the bottom in spray paint. The second time I kicked myself for not doing it the first time.
Did you really roll it over, Bridget? Did you?
No, I have a penchant for being attracted to bad boys.
Okay.
I've grown out of it, but in my early years, I was a sucker for somebody that was a bad influence.
All right. I'll leave it at that. That's a funny story. You're embarrassed, I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my proudest moment. I've definitely made a lot of decisions to end up here. So, when the girls come to me and they're young and they're like, oh, these boys, and I'm like, just leave them. You'll fall in love again. You'll be fine.
Great life advice. Thanks very much for that. Okay. I'm going to move on to the real reason why I got you onto the podcast, Bridget Bell. You wake up one morning and you get a text and it says, please check your bank balance. And you think this must be a joke or something like that. So you open up your bank app and it tells you that you've become an instant billionaire. Your bank balance has gone to billionaire levels. And you think to yourself, come on, is this a joke?
This is what princess moments are made for. Like, you just okay, to make this even better, you get out of bed in the morning and nothing hurts. And then you check your bank balance and it's 10 figures, like decimal places are 10 digits in. That's like, okay, cool. Today is a good day. How am I going to spend this money, Connor?
How are you going to spend this money? Well, you then get an email to spend this money. It tells you can buy any car, bike, or machine that you want, but you're only allowed 3 in your dream garage. Okay. So with that in mind, what is the first car, bike, or machine that you would have in your dream garage, Bridget Bell?
All right. I've deliberated over this for some time, and I've actually changed my mind on this so many times because obviously I've given you the bit of a backstory on like practical cars. I've always had utes or wagons or, the things I can move stuff in. So I went back and forth for a while because if I had that many decimal places in my bank balance, I wouldn't be driving myself anymore. Because as much as I enjoy driving, I don't enjoy driving. So I want something I can be driven in.
Okay.
Primarily for my daily drive, I want something that I can be chauffeured around in.
All right.
And so maybe like a disco sport, something like that caliber as a 7 series, or, if I'm going to go down like the wagon line, I go for like an M5 touring with like heated seats and like the full motorsport package. That's like that beautiful green color. And then I was like, maybe I want something vintage, like an old, like W124 Mercedes or something. Oh, maybe. And I'm going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And then this week, I drove a Grenadier at work.
The Ineos Grenadier.
Right.
Right.
And now I want one of those.
Okay, so your first car, which you would like to be driven around in if you decided to say, nah, I don't want to drive anymore, is an Ineos Grenadier. Yeah.
And so for the benefit of our esteemed audience that has listened to me prattle on for this long, so it's the B58, the 6 cylinder, turbo 3 litre with 8-speed transmission. And I want in the shale blue. I want the Fieldmaster 2-seat utility edition because I don't have friends, so I don't need a back seat.
I'm your friend. What are you talking about?
When you come over, you can sit in the passenger seat and I'll drive.
Okay. Hang on. Wait a second. You said you didn't want to be driven. I'll drive. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the special guest then.
Okay.
Come all the way over from Sydney. I'll take you for a drive in this to show you places. Safari windows on the roof.
Nice.
I want the control panel on the roof. I want carpet, not plastic, because they do the draining variety for when you are a serious off-roader. I'm not that person. I am a passenger princess that is a mall crawler. So I don't need the 4-wheel drive package. I want the heat reflective privacy glass in the rear and the silver ladder frame or the grey ladder frame underneath, not the red, not the black. So it contrasts nice, and I think that'll look really, really nice when you start seeing the oil stains from the BMW engine.
Hang on, I'm a BMW man myself. Leave us BMW friends alone, thank you. Well, I've got to say,
the BMW oil legs is they're all rectifiable. It's not a problem. And what was the suede for the steering wheel?
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Now I got to admit, the Ineos Grenadier, it's a partnership between Ineos, which is based on the original Land Rover Defender, and it's got BMW componentry in it. So Jim Radcliffe, who's the chairman of the chemicals company Ineos, he's created the offshoot of this.
Are you aware of the story?
No, please tell.
So he wanted to buy the disco patents, and they told him basically get bent. So him and one of his cronies, because they're quite wealthy gentlemen, got together at the pub and decided that they'd make a play for it and just purchase the rights for the shell. And that's what they did. So basically, it's two boys in the pub over a pint of beer decided this would be a great idea.
It's pretty cool, isn't it? And they've got BMW componentry, and I've got to say, it does have a lot of the Land Rover elements, the original Land Rover Defender, but it's just beefed up to something else.
I've always been a sucker for Land Cruiser Troopy or the old disco with the the corner skylights and I really love that rugged full drive look. But when I was driving it this week, with my background and what I've done, I really appreciated the gearbox and the familiarity of the feel of the drivetrain, and I just really, really liked it. So this week for me, it's a Grenadier.
Beautiful. I like it. Absolutely like it. Particularly when it's got BMW componentry in it, like the inline six. It's bulletproof. It has reliability when it doesn't leak oil. So you're on a win.
It's fine. And that's just a time thing. So you change the seals out and away you go. It's fine.
Perfect. What's your
right. So initially when I started thinking about this, I was like, well, I want a daily driver and I want I want to learn to be a race car driver. So if I had the bank account with all the zeros, then I could buy the GT3 car and get BD to give me one-on-one tuition, and that would be his full-time job with all the zeros in my bank accounts.
Who's VG? Who was it?
BD Suter Dawson. He's one of the guys in Perth here who builds, he's engineer and sports driver coach and quite a successful karting driver. He's been involved with a lot of very successful Madeline Stewart.
Maddie Stewart, who's racing in America now in Porsche Carrera Cup. So
so very well. He's great, and I was like, oh yeah, you know what? I could just do that. But then I thought to myself, I don't want to be a race car driver.
You don't want to be a race car driver?
want to be a race car driver. Like, I'm turning 40 this year. Like,
Oh, come on.
I'm not ready to like learn how to like have fast reaction times and do all that fitness and like really pump myself up and do all of that. And, the media stuff, the circus, and all the rest connected to it, and be a role model for people. I'm not cut out for that life. So I've decided I adore my. I got a street triple, a Triumph, and I adore it. And the only thing that's wrong with it is it's probably a little bit small for me. So it's the 695. So I'd get the new variant on that, which is the 1200 RR, the triple sport. So that's where I would go for that one. So speed triple, and that's what I do. I get the white one with the black and gold. And the reviews on it are really, really good. I feel like the bike is way too advanced for me. I'd never be able to ride it to its potential, which is exactly what you want. Because, I feel like the bike is smart enough to make me a decent rider.
I'm actually quite impressed. It's kind of like a naked bike in a sense, but I love I love the fact that it's an inline 3-cylinder, double overhead cam, 674 or 675 cubic inch. But it produces only 106 horsepower, but obviously it would be beefed up.
Well, you're talking like it's got a cast aluminium frame. It's got it's very, very lightweight. It's got all of the learnings from the Moto 2 world. So it's got the electronic adaptable suspension. It's got the quick shift up and down doesn't just cut ignition timing, it cuts like a whole heap of stuff to do like a slip between gears rather than a full chop. Which mine's just got the quick shifter in the up at the moment. So having that in the down as well, that's a little bit smoother, a little less clunky. I feel like that's like a new leap forward in technology. My bike is 2015. Obviously, we're talking 10 years of progress.
Technology has improved so much in between now and then. So, but that's.
I mean, there's bikes that I'd like. Like when I was going through the list, I was like, maybe I want an Aprilia, or maybe I want an MV Augusta, or maybe even like a Moto Guzzi, like something Italian that's incredibly unreliable but really, really sexy.
Like a Ducati.
Yeah, like a Ducati. Like
I should be careful. I should be careful because I know someone from Ducati Australia that I talked to. I want to try and get her on the pod, so I'm gonna have to be nice and make sure that I'm in a good book. So.
Look, I mean, we're in a podcast where we're talking about personal opinion and that, and I say these things flippantly. Like, there's a lot of beautiful things, like obviously there's like BMWs and all the rest, but like or Hayabusas, it's too much power for me. I'm not going to ride that. It'd be ridiculous.
Not a fan of Hayabusas?
I think it's just too much bike for me. I don't have the riding style or the ability to be able to ride it comfortably. So there's no having like a super big 1400 bike, because I'm only I think something like the RR is going to suit my size and my weight, and be maneuverable and be nimble the way that my bike is. My bike is super like, it'll just flip from one side to the other, and it's a joy to ride. And I always thought like I'd want a Daytona as the next step
Daytona.
up.
Interesting.
But like now that this is available, I'm like, all right, we might do that instead.
I like that. The Tri-Street Triple. Interesting. I'll take that. That's a good choice. And that's practical. You can actually ride around it as a daily. I think that's, very impressed. Very, very impressed.
Yeah, I really like my naked bikes. I've had a few of them. They're terribly impractical, and obviously you're exposed to all the elements. But I enjoy them.
Good. That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Last one. Mm-hmm. The third car, bike, or machine you have in your dream garage.
It's a boat.
Now you do have a love for boats. You make no secret of that.
Yeah, I'm quite a competitive sailor. I'm not competitive at anything else I do in life because I'm not that good at it. Sailing is one of the few skills that I have. I started sailing when I was 15 years old, and I've dabbled with it since. Um, you know, I just love being out in front on a boat. I love the teamwork. I love the physicality of it. And I like being up on the deck, on the foredeck, where it's all scary and you're getting splashed with water and you may die. I'm not a great swimmer, so I've been resuscitated like 3 times. So it's a real adrenaline rush for me, being that close to the water and that close to.
I'm not sure if getting resuscitated 3 times to save your life is something that would be, that would thrill your, rock your boat.
You know what it does? It makes you a bloody good sailor, because if you're not, you end up in the water.
That's a fair point. It's a very fair point.
So the Nortor Swan 80, 120. The 100-foot would probably be enough for me. I think it's got 6 berths, so enough for family and friends and crew. It's something I could comfortably sail to Monaco.
Well, you dream. The Nortor Swan, what was it again?
The 100 is the one I've kind of got my eye on. I haven't seen how much it costs. They don't put things like the cost of these things on the website, because if you need to ask how much it is, that's terribly crass and you can't afford one.
Of course. Oh, okay. Now you showed me some photos before. It looks very interesting.
It's so all right. So the things I like about it. So it's got a flat foredeck, so you can actually it's actually built for sailing. So you can pull the genoa across and not have it entangled with superfluous crap that's put there for sunbakers or for people that just want a fancy yacht. So this is a luxury cruising yacht that is the size of a New York apartment, like a fancy one, not a shit one, that actually performs. So we've got the twin hulls, so you can be up on the high side, steering. Sorry, not twin hull, the twin steering. So you can be up on the top and see what's going on. You've got it's I think from the reading I did a while ago when I first put this on my if I ever get really, really rich and famous wish list. These are set up so you've got all mechanical mechanical hydraulic winches, so you can just steer it by yourself. This is set up to single man around the world, or have a party with 100 people.
And you would be someone that would have a party with 100 people, something
I don't know 100 people. We'll go back to the Grenadier. I only need 2 doors.
But you would have it because you love your boat. So
well, I just live on it. I just sail around the world and be like, oh, there's a car race here. I'll just go there and just take my house with me and just sail there.
Who would you take?
Dogs. Yeah, probably the dogs.
Just you and the dogs. And
yeah, my partner Rich, he doesn't like boats, so he's not getting on it. He hates not being on the land, so he's out. I'd probably take, so I sail with the South of Perth Yacht Club. I'd probably take the girls from the women's squad that I competitively sail with every year. We'd probably ham it up and take that out. That'd be all right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Those girls, because we're all like-minded. I think they'd be happy with that. I think if I pulled up and went, oh, you guys want to sail with me this weekend, and we'll just do a girls squad, mixer type thing. We'll get both crews on this one boat because it's big enough for all of us. I think that'd be a good training exercise.
I'm pretty sure it would be the perfect training exercise, a bonding exercise, I reckon.
Yeah, we'll have some downhill runs with the spinnaker up and crack a bottle of champagne, and we'll see how long we can make the Swan River downhill.
Beautiful. I like the sound of that. I love it. I think it's a great dream garage, a car, a bike, and a yacht. You're actually
Yeah,
the third person. You're the third person that has actually mentioned a yacht in the Dream Garage. I think it's really cool. Lou King, who raced Porsche Carrera Cup and previously TCR, he has a schooner yacht in his Dream Garage. He was our first guest, and there's an actress
right.
I know.
Yeah, that's a great choice. A schooner, great
Yeah,
idea.
schooner yacht. Yeah, I think I raced in the Sydney to Hobart from memory too. So there you go. And there's another one that an actress friend of mine who worked in America for a time, tried to make a break in Hollywood, and she got to ride on a very nice yacht. So yeah, you're the third person that's included a yacht in the Dream Garage. So you're in very good company.
I feel like I am.
Yes,
Top tier.
very
So
top tier.
wondering about what they're going to add to their Dream Garage. Maybe consider becoming a yacht owner.
A yacht owner, yeah. Well, you are a yacht competitor, so you like your sailing. So
I wish I had more time for it, but this is the perfect blend because I just live on the yacht. So if you live there, you've got heaps of time for it, right?
it's true. It's very true. I love it. The Ineos Grenadiers, the Triumph Street Triple, and the Norton Swan 100. That's a perfect Dream Garage for you. It suits you to a T because I can understand why someone would like to drive you around Perth or Western Australia in a luxury four-wheel drive. I mean, you would be lapping it up. And then I could see you actually racing around Perth on a Triumph, on a triple cylinder.
You know, just getting around, doing the shopping run or whatever.
Exactly. Grabbing some coffees, taking it back to work, lecturing and yelling at people when they're not listening to you, throw some things at them. Kidding when I say that.
I try not to do that. Like, you only maintain focus for so long when you're yelling at people. Nobody does well in that environment.
Yeah.
So, and it's no good for my voice.
No. I think, yeah, like I said, perfect garage. I think it's a perfect way to end the conversation that I've had with you. I've absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you so much for giving me your time, and thank you for agreeing. Well, I've been trying to get you on for a while to talk about you and your interest in cars. And of course, we should also mention the Women in Motorsport program that you've got in the Women Automotive program that you got in Western Australia. You are in charge of that. Just quickly tell us about that.
Yeah, not just this Western Australia. It's I've inherited Girls Talk.
Yes.
Yeah, is a national network for women in all things motoring, and we've just appointed our board, and we're going through like our foundational stage, I guess you could call it, like just taking it into the 21st century. Girls Talk's been around for 23 years. So really, really big in motorsport. Maybe like 10 years ago was probably its halcyon days. Really great with mentoring and workshops and, track driving experiences, all those sorts of things. So it's something we want to reconnect with and take it into the trade space as well. One of the founding members, Leonie, she's also a mechanic. So, it's with her blessing that we push it into that direction as well. Obviously, those trade spaces is something I'm really passionate about, and there's an obvious intersectionality between motorsport and automotive. So, yeah, the girls that are existing in that world, like just creating a space that they can come and get some mentoring and get some tips and tricks and just feel like they're not the odd one out.
And it's great that you're at the front and center of that for Girls Talk. And I wish you all the very best with your endeavors with Girls Talk and for whatever you do in the future. You've got so much going on, and it's hard to keep up with you sometimes, but I'm so proud of you that you've done so well. And I wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for coming onto the pod, and I wish nothing but the greatest of success to you. Well done.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you for your time. Thanks for the audience as well, for their attention. If they've made it this far, you've exceeded all expectations.
I love it. Thanks very much. Bridget Bell is a woman of many talents, and her ability to adapt to many different facets of the motoring industry is one that is worthy of adulation and respect. The fact that Bridget has gone out and achieved all these skills proves that regardless of gender, the opportunities to make your mark in whatever field you choose to do is available if you have the drive and determination to make it. And her dream garage, wowee. A car, a bike, and a boat. She certainly ticked all boxes, catering for everything involving the need for speed. You can follow Bridget online on Facebook and Instagram, and you can check out the Girls Talk website at www.girlstalque.com.au. We've put up the links in the show notes as well as on the Motor Dream podcast website. Speaking of which, the show website is www.themotordream.com.au, where you can listen to past episodes, information on each of our guests, and also on the show itself. And we've streamlined our social media presence for 2025, focusing solely on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us by the handle, The Motor Dream, and you can also start a conversation about your dream garage by using the hashtag, The Motor Dream. Or better still, why not drop us a line on what your dream garage would be? Our email is themotordream@beastproductions.com.au. That's BEAST productions.com.au. Lastly, make sure you like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube Music. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Season 2 of the Motor Dream Podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember to drive or ride safely out on the roads wherever you go. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time for another episode of the Motor Dream Podcast. See you then.
Thanks for listening to the Motor Dream Podcast. This series is proudly produced by Beast Productions.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.